last right, last week we were at Sunnah al-Mawaqif and Sunnah al-Dalalah. So we have explained what is this two sunnahs, the basis of it, right? In fact, tahawulat, their role they play, what is the importance of the Sunnah Mawaqif, Sunnah Dalalah in fact tahawulat. So, for instance, Mawaqif stands for stances, right? Taken by the Prophet ﷺ and his Khulafa through in facing all kinds of challenges, tahawulat, changes, whether it's in situation, circumstances, or behavioral, like in people uh, action towards the Prophet, and so on and so forth, right? And then Sunnah Dalalah, in terms of it's like more of like a legal guideline, when you want to do da'wah, right? What can be done or what cannot be done, right? It's a kind of a irshad. Dalala comes from the word dalil. Dalil is a murshid. In linguistically, it means like some kind of indication or guidance, right? So included within this is also what we have at the end of that chapter, where a good dream, right? At the end of times, the believer, his dreams will be more and more clearer, and there's this mubashirat, right? A good tiding, glad tiding. So this is when the Prophet ﷺ said at the end of times. So of course it has importance in fiqh tahawulat, right? So there is a change, there is a tahawul, right? Because at the end of times you don't have you have lesser and lesser guidance lah, lesser and lesser means of guidance. Hence, this kind of dreams, this kind of mubashirat, right? They serve as a form of a guidance. Right? Again, back to that, the meaning of the term dalalah, right? From the word dalil, right? And it becomes a kind of a dalil, becomes a kind of a irshad for the person, right? So a mu'min will take importance lah, will put this mubashirat, you have to pay attention to it. What Allah SWT give to you in terms of mubashirat, right? It has usually it comes with some kind of guidance to help you navigate when there's lack of guidance, when there's lack of leadership. Okay, so today, lesson 17, the concept of rightly guided caliphs in the context of fiqh tahawulat. So in the context of fiqh tahawulat, it says here the concept of the rightly guided caliphs is a comprehensive definition encompassing awwula. Awwula ni dia macam from the word wi'a. Wi'a ni macam a vessel lah. A vessel, or awwula is the plural, which means that carriers of those who hold rulership and knowledge. Rulership or knowledge also can. So it is not a necessary condition for them to be both having rulership and knowledge. It must be usually it is at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he is the one who carries the rulership and the knowledge, and then the Khulafa ar-Rashidun, they carry the rulership and the knowledge until the time of who? Sayyidina Al-Hasan. Sayyidina Hasan, he carried rulership and knowledge for the time being. Thereafter, he abdicated, right? He himself voluntarily abdicated, and that is, he removed himself from the position of ruler, but still, was he a Khalifa? He is still a Khalifa in the sense of Khalifa of knowledge. So, with the condition of there being hasanah, right? So there's a syarat lah. Rulership and knowledge, there is a hasanah and adalah. Adalah, it seems that he translates here as justice. Not really justice lah. So this Translation is also Sheikh Ahmad MB ni, he is also revising his translations also. So his translations are not final. So he has the upcoming book, I think Al-Iqlid is he's working on Al-Iqlid if I'm not mistaken. So the terms are gonna be translated in a more accurate way in the next translation. So adalah is not just justice, it's more than that. We have seen it before. So these are the conditions for the khulafa. So you can see here khulafa in tahawulat is wider in its meaning. It encompasses more people than just the Khalifa that we know, the 6 of them or the 5 of them. So from the time of the rightly guided caliphs until the time when Allah SWT will usher in the day of judgment. So in fact, tahawulat, the details concerning the rightly guided caliphate are divided into 2 categories. So first is caliphate of the affirmation. So in the Arabic text, it does not say affirmation, right? What does it say? Fi qarar. Khilafatu qararil hukmi wal ilmi. Affirmation is not really, again, not really a good translation lah. I mean, it's not really what it's trying to say. It's like in the field or in the medan lah, or in the sometimes we translate it as qarar. In certain contexts, I like to use the word hegemony. Sometimes in this case, I think the word field of ruling and knowledge I think is better. To otherwise, if I say affirmation, people might, it can be confusing. So yeah, so this is limited to the periods of the 6 caliphs. So here he mentioned 6. So why is it 6? Because he include within it Umar bin Abdul Aziz. Khalifa Umar bin Abdul Aziz, right, is the 6th, even though, right, technically he is not within that 30 years. Like the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the Khilafah will be for 30 years. So technically he's not inside that 30 years. But in terms of his the way he conducted his caliphate, right, his uprightness, right, his adalah, his hasanah, right, in terms of there are nusus, there are nas which indicate towards his rulership. So in that, because of that, he is included under this as the 6 of the caliphs. So we have Abu Bakr Siddiq, Umar al-Khattab, Uthman bin Affan, Ali bin Abi Talib, Hasan bin Ali. And this is the period where the sacred text sound, and whose people are declared upright. Okay. Does it say in the Arabic? It says ثم الخليفة الخامس حسن بن علي بن طالب وهذه هي المرحلة المنسوس. Marhala mansus lah. Marhala yang dinaskan ataupun marhala yang ada nas. There are texts which support this era as an era that has hasanah, has immunity, has protection. Ala salamatiha wa adalati rijaliha, and on the uprightness of its men, of its people, of its leaders. So following this period is the Caliphate of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, insofar as he was noted for his personal integrity as a Caliph and innocent of any offences against the Sharia. This period will be followed in future by the age of Mahdi and the age of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. So the Caliphate of the first one will be what? Hukum and Ilm. So they gather within them these 2 criteria. Secondly, the Caliphate of the affirmation of knowledge and Sharia heritage, Qararul Ilm. This period commences with the abdication of Imam al-Hasan. By Imam al-Hasan stepping down, there occurred on the one hand a separation between knowledge and Sharia inheritance and rule, right? So there's separation between ilm and rulership, and mulkul adud on the other. So there is this new marhala of the mulkul adud, right? We have seen that before. So this point is emphasized in Imam al-Hasan's famous speech on the eve of his abdication. Verily Allah SWT has guided you by the first of us and saved your blood by the last of us. So Muawiyah has contested with me in something that I have more right to hold than him, but leave it for the sake of preventing bloodshed among Muslims and to seek what is with Allah. So with this abdication begins the era of, or the Khulafa of ilm, right? So Sayyidina Hassan is considered still a Khalifa, but not of rulership, but of ilm, and those whoever that follows him, those who follow the way, right, of all the Khulafa in terms of knowledge, and those who have adalah, uprightness, and sanad, right? These are the people who have who are considered to be the khulafa in fiqh tahawulat. So thus this definition of caliphate shows the importance of adalah and fully connected sanad in the domain of Shariah knowledge for the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, their successors, and those who follow them with excellence till the day of judgment. So adalah, remember what is the definition of adalah? We've seen before, right? So there must be it. Of course, they must uh, follow the criteria set by the fuqaha, right? In terms of their being away from, or staying away from major sins and not persistent upon minor sins, and their, in addition to that, they do not participate in shedding of blood between Muslims, right? Like in the fitnah of all the shedding of blood in terms of unjust murder, unjust killings, and then uh, salamatul lisan minaz zam, and their, tongues, or they are safe in terms of their speech from excommunicating, right? Accusation of takfir, right? Or anything related to that, right? So this is the adalah of the infect tahawulat, and sometimes they add salamatul qalb min al-ham, right? The heart being free from all kinds of concerns, right, or worries, right? So they are the ones referred to in fact tahawulat by the words of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Those among you who survive me will see many differences, so that you stick to my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided and upright caliphs. So this is the hadith of Irbad ibn Sariyah, right? We have seen that before. I think one of my slides I have. So, and they gather in themselves. The word here, Khulafa al-Rashidin al-Mahdiyyin, al-Rushd and Ihda. The terms Rashidin from Rushd means justice and integrity, Adalah, right? And Mahdiyin, Hidayah. They have on top of their virtuousness, uprightness, they have righteous actions, right? And Sanad. So these two terms, right, are the conditions for the Khulafa, right? So we look at this. I have a slide here. So this is the hadith of Irbad bin Sariyah, and it forms the basis of this concept of Khalifa. Also, we have from the same hadith, we have the concept of Sunnatul Mawaqif, right? Sunnah Mawaqif. So here, in this hadith, right, the Prophet ﷺ gave a very powerful sermon, right? And he says, one of the men said, "Oh, Prophet of Allah, this is as if it were a parting advice. So advise us." He Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "I admonish you to fear Allah, to listen and obey, even if an Abyssinian slave is appointed as your leader." So it is the Prophet ﷺ is anticipating, or telling them to anticipate, like the leadership, is not gonna be all, it will be changed. There will be changes. There will be people who take leadership who are not, what you expect, right? So because whoever amongst you shall live after me will see much discord. There will be a lot of discord, power struggle, right, between people. Therefore, hold fast to my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided caliphs who will come after me. And so this is the point where Habib Abu Bakr pointed out that this sunnah is not there is two sunnahs here. Right? So what is it? What is the sunnah of the rightly guided caliphs? Right? So it is not just the sunnah yang apa, that in terms of tashri', in terms of legislation, but it is a sunnah that has a broader or more political, right? You can say it's more political in nature lah, right? Which is mawqif lah, stances, right? So why? Because of the context of the hadith here, you will see much discord. Discord comes from where? And then he talks about leadership. He talks about leadership implying, it's about politics lah. It's about power struggle. So it is not really about legal aspect of the sunnah, more of the political aspect of the sunnah. Adhere to it, adhere to them. Addu alayha bin nawajis. Beware of new matters, because every bid'ah is a misguidance. So the bid'ah is also whatever that goes against the sunnah of the khulafa or sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Whatever that is against their mawqif, a mawqif that is contradictory to their mawqif, right? For example, when you have Sayyidina Osman radiallahu anh, right? When he was forced, they pressured him to abdicate. Like Sayyidina Osman was pressured to abdicate, right? And there were narrations, there were nas, there were texts narrated, and he was advised not to abdicate. Allah will adorn him with a garment, will clothe him with a garment. And the Prophet said to him, do not take off that garment, right? And Ibn Umar also reminded him of this. He said, do not abdicate, right? So, because it will become a sunnah, it will become a tradition. Once you abdicate, everyone else will, all the Khalifa will abdicate when people pressure them. It will become like a, they will like suka-suka lah, tukar. Anyhow they like, they want to change their leader, they just, revolt and rebel and demonstrate. So that is the bid'ah. That is one example of the bid'ah that, is a form of misguidance in the bid'ah in the political sense, right? Every time you don't like a particular leader, you revolt and you bring him down, ask him to abdicate. And so the Khalifa or the leader will also, just submit and just give up his leadership. So, and all leaders will follow that kind of mawqif. So that is a mawqif that is not upon the mawqif of the rightly guided caliphs. So, but then what about the case of Sayyidina Hassan, right? So before that, this is apart from the section from the book of At-Talid wa Tarif, right? Abu Bakr says, وَلَيْسَ لِلْأَصْحَابِ بَعْدِ النَّبِي مِنْ سُنَّةٍ مَكْتُوبَةٍ فِي الْكُتُبِ غَيْرَ الَّذِي قَدْ كَانَ مِنْ مَوْقِفِ بَدَتْ سُلُوكًا فِي الزَّمَانِ مُهْجِفِ. So this is he is indicating, right, in these lines of poetry, right, towards the sunnah that أن الخلفاء سواء كانوا الأربعة أو غيرهم في مطلق المعنى ليس لهم هناك سنة مستقلة تقرأ أو تتبع. So there is no other sunnah lah, right, for the khulafa that is different from the sunnah of the Prophet, such that necessitates من مدلول الإسمة لهم بعد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فيفهم من مدلول الحديث أن السنة المقصودة بها هنا في الهدى والسلوك والمواقف. So the sunnah here is referring to the sunnah in terms of their mawqif. So addu alayha bil nawajis, hold on to them strongly. Then fama fi here hazil sunnah wa ma what is this sunnah, right? What is the identity of the sunnah? This is the sunnah of mawaqif, right? So the power struggle, as I mentioned, this is another dalil lah, basically another proof of the power struggle that will come, right? So the Prophet ﷺ said, I'm not afraid that you will associate anything with Allah after me, but I am afraid that you may be allured by the world and vie with one another in possessing material wealth and begin killing one another, and you would be destroyed as you would destroy those who had gone before you. Right. So he's been indicating to the killing one another, right, vying for the world, right, the wealth and position. So Uqbah said that was the last occasion that he saw the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the pulpit. So this is another proof of the impending conflict or power struggle. So example, as I mentioned earlier, how about Sayyidina Hassan in terms of his abdication? Right? Why did he abdicate? So this narration, Al-Hasan al-Basri said, I heard Abu Bakr saying, I saw Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the pulpit, and Al-Hasan bin Ali was by his side. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was looking once at the people and once at Al-Hasan bin Ali, saying, this son of mine is a Sayyid, and may Allah make peace between two big groups of Muslims through him. Right, so this is an indication, right, that he will do something which he will take a mawqif, right, which will cause the unity of Muslims. So by right, if he were to follow the Nas strictly, right, he wasn't supposed to abdicate, right? Just if he were to follow the way of all the other, khulafa, he was not supposed to abdicate. But so Sudal Mawaqif means, or guides him instead to see that there is a better or a greater benefit if he were to abdicate. So his mawqif in that case is to abdicate and to maintain the peace, right? So that doesn't mean that he is going against the sunnah of the khulafa. So he's setting he begins a new sunnah, right? And this is based on the circumstances that he is in, right? And also his stance is supported by this nas that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. So you cannot say that his stance is not supported by a prophetic text. It is supported, right? So there is no blame on him. There's no blame on him. And the stance of Sayyidina Osman also is supported, right, by a text which prohibits him from abdicating. Right? So, and he is the last one to have the ta'dil. Right? He's the last one to have the ta'dil of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ta'dil, if you familiar, some might not be familiar, is a term often used in the science of hadith, right? In order to establish, right, someone's uprightness as a narrator, right? Trustworthiness. So the rest of those who come after Sayyidina Al-Hasan are considered mujtahidin in the sense that they, in terms of whatever legislation, whatever stance they take, right, they are doing their ijtihad, they're rewarded for it, right? Twice the reward if they are right, and one reward for if they are not, if they don't hit the mark, right? So he following the text or taking a stance that is contrary to it for a specific reason. So again, as mentioned, Sayyidina Hassan, even though, right, the Khalifa is not supposed to abdicate, like without a, is not supposed to abdicate due to the demand of the people. Right? He took a stance and abdicated for a specific reason. Right. So that is chapter 17, right? Yeah, lesson 17. So we look at lesson 18 a bit, which actually we have covered. Right. Lesson 18 is the categories of sunnah. Basically the term sunnah, as we have seen in the previous, I think lesson number 16, right? Sunnah al-Mawaqif and sunnah ad-Dalalah. We have seen that it has a different shade of meaning in tahawulat. So this chapter actually serves to detail these different meanings lah. So the categories of sunnah in the fiqh of language, lugha, in usul, and in tahawulat. So after establishing the basis for the quadripartite division, or the rubai, the four pillars of religion, an examination of sunnah al-mawaqif and sunnah dalalah, and as supports to fiqh tahawulat, and knowledge of the signs of the hour, it becomes clear that conceptually the Sunnah is divided into three categories. Sunnah is all that has been recorded about the Prophet from his sayings, actions, and approvals. This is what the scholars of fundamentals have relied on in their service to the three constants, three thawabit: Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. Right? So this is the usul one, right? The sayings of the Prophet, his actions, and his approvals. So then number two is the standpoints taken by the Prophet and his dalalah, and the standpoint taken by the rightly guided caliphs and their dalalah. This is the definition of Sunnah and the Sunnah of the rightly guided and upright caliphs. Hold fast to it, cling to it with your molar teeth. This does not mean that the Prophet has a Sunnah and the caliphs have another Sunnah. Rather, what is meant in the wording of the hadith is the Sunnah al-Mawaqif. So what is meant by Sunnah in this context is different from hadith. Right? The Sunnah refers to standpoints because there are many narrations which Rasulullah SAW mentioned Sunnati wa hadi. So he differentiates these two terms. Right? So an example is this one: that there shall come people who will adopt a Sunnah other than my Sunnah, will be guided other than my guidance. So if you pay attention closely, you see that he differentiates two terms by Sunnah and my guidance. Why does he differentiate these two terms? Right? And this is not the only narration. Right? There are other narrations as well. Right? There are at least another 2-3 narrations like this. So, oh Allah, show mercy to my successors who are to come after me, who will relate my Sunnah and teach them to the people. So the Sunnah in this context refers to their standpoints in terms of the negative standpoint. So there are negative and there's positive. And the hadith refers to the act of changing words from their proper places and misapplying the meanings of Quran and Sunnah. So this is because this hadith is referring to the dakhan. Dakhan is the evil hidden in the right that comes after the good that the Prophet has brought. Right. So that's why he puts here the negative standpoints and the corruption of the hadith, misapplying it. Right. The Sunnah in this context refers to mawqif and dalalah. Right. Allah shows mercy to my khulafa who are to come after me, who will relate my Sunnah and teach them to the people. As for the hadith of the Prophet above, who will relate my hadith, right? I think if you look in your book, I think there is a mistake here. There's a mistake in the. Let me see. Let me check the book. What does it say? Yarwun al-hadithi. I teach people my hadith. Relate my hadith. Who will relate my hadith, right? My hadith. So yes. So this text, this hadith has two terms here. We will relate my hadith, right? And Sunnah. And teach them to the people. Right, so here it's very clear that Rasulullah SAW, he clearly distinguished between these two, hadith and Sunnah. So the Sunnah in this context refers to mawaqif. Right? Why does he distinguish? Because he's referring to two different things. Right? The Sunnah is mawaqif, the hadith is the words or the legal or the usul, right? Definition. My hadith, it is referring to the three aspects of the Sunnah: statements, actions, and approvals. Right? So everyone clear about this? Right? Why there is a difference between my hadith and Sunnah? Right? My hadith refer to those in the words and the actions and the approvals of the Prophet, and the Sunnah referring to his mawqif. So lastly, the third definition is linguistic definition of Sunnah as a path, method, or sirah, whether good or evil. This is understood from the statement of Abdullah bin Umar, who said to Uthman, and on the day the latter was killed, right? The latter was besieged in his house. So he says, do not remove the garment that Allah has clothed you with, lest it become a sunnah, lest it becomes a way, a tradition, right? A legacy. And whenever people detest a caliph, they remove him and kill him. So this meaning is also understood from the hadith, there shall arise a fitna between my companions, Allah will forgive them on account of their companionship with me. Then there will arise a people after them who will follow that legacy. Say legacy. So this sunnah here, the meaning is more of, right, legacy. Legacy. So a very interesting hadith, right? This one. People will justify their acts. Oh, the Sahabat fought against each other for power. Why can't we? So they use that to justify their power struggle, their desire for power, to overthrow others, to gain power, and shed the blood of fellow Muslims. Right? And that itself, they will be destroyed by that. Right? The companions, right, they are forgiven on account of their companionship with the Prophet. But these people, because of their ignorance of this tradition, right, of tahawulat, right, they end up falling into this evil, right, this destruction, like this. Wallahu alam bisawab. I think that's suffice for today. Any questions? Okay, if you have no questions, then I'll end the session. Wa iyyakum. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Jazakallah khair.
Iyyakum.